Hi, everybody, and welcome to Metaphysical Insights. I'm your host, William Becker, and today I have a very special guest, Mr. Rocky Smith. Rocky is the director of the Oregon Ghost Conference and Mr. All Things History and Paranormal in the thriving metropolis of Oregon City. Um, and all kinds of other things. He's a fascinating person in his own light and own right, but he's the guy with the know about the biggest conference we've got, as far as I know, on the West Coast. Rocky, welcome.
Thank you, William. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm not running a ghost conference, I'm probably um, a little more zen than some of the rest of you might be right now.
And William, if that was the only thing I was doing, it'd be fine.
I know. Yeah, let's see. Well, there's teaching, there's
Yeah,
city commission, there's water board, there's who
a
knows?
few other things I think in there, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to balance it all. It's
good.
going okay. The Ghost Conference seems to be in full swing and ready to go. So I have a few weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. I always
Some
get scared when I check. In my head, it's 3 weeks, but I think it's just shy of that.
yeah, just a little shy. Oh, I'm looking forward
It's
to
one
it.
of those things where we have ghost conference meetings every once in a while, and I remember at one time last year I was like, oh, well, we still have 4 weeks, and they're like, no, we do not have 4 weeks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I think I'm good. I think I'm pretty good. I have a lot of stuff to still do, but
Mhm.
most of the big things have been checked off the list, and I have a few more things to get accomplished this week. But other than that, it's promo and trying to get the word out.
Yeah, and that's part of why we're here, folks.
Yeah.
Um, if you have any questions, comments, go ahead and type them in, and when I see them, I'll flash them up. And so Rocky can see them and all the rest of it, and if we'll answer what we can. Um, You've got a pretty good sized team helping with this now, don't you? Because this thing has grown exponentially
Well,
over the years.
I don't know what pretty. I could use about 10 more people helping me probably.
Okay.
Um, so we have a small committee actually. It's myself. It's our friend Holly Swager, my mother, Angela Smith, who helps with a lot of stuff, but her and Holly kind of are the ones behind the scenes doing, behind the ticket box office, working that all most of the weekend. And
Mhm.
Kristen Gray, who is a good friend who has been working on the Ghost Conference for a long time,
Yeah.
and helps with pretty much every aspect that I need help with. Honestly, she's like, uh, she takes over so much of the things that I need help getting contacts with people, things like that, or doing any of the social media stuff. And so she's kind of a buffer between, I think, me and all the other questions that come in. And then when I sit at home, I just send her questions by texts, like in the middle of the night, like, what do
Uh-huh.
you think about this? Or bounce ideas off of each other. And so she's a huge help.
Yeah.
And but that's just four of us really. And I
Okay.
mean, four of us doing the main planning and the day-to-day kind of decision making. But as you know, there's so many people involved in the Ghost Conference, between all the people that volunteer and do investigations and tours and instructors and speakers. And if you count that as the team, which I guess I would count it, it's 100 or more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah. Well, and how many? I mean, I know the tickets are selling fast. I know my class is almost sold out.
Yeah,
That's it, folks.
who knew you were so popular?
Yeah. I have my
Yeah, you only
secrets.
got 5 tickets left for his class. So there's actually, it's interesting because we try to get the word out about the classes and stuff, but with so many events. I can only do so much promotion myself on each of the events, and so we're trying
Mhm.
to get everyone to promote their own classes. But some classes, yours is big. There's about 3 or 4 classes that you can tell are very much the becoming popular, and you can kind of see that from year to year what classes are popular. We're trying to change things up a little bit, but yeah, I think you only have 5 tickets left. So
Yeah. So, Shauna, since you didn't get one with your brother, you better hurry up. See, I'm a medium. I know these things.
well, and actually, what people may not know, the cool thing about your class, which we kind of work together on, because I'm going to actually be doing a tour at the same time William's doing a class. We're going to kind of flip locations, but um, the bonus with Williams class or some of these other events is there's a couple events that are taking place at the locations beyond the convention center. So if you take Williams class, you'll actually get a tour of the Starry Night Inn and the Masonic Lodge. So it's kind of a two-in-one deal, I guess. You get a little bit of a tour and see some new locations plus the class. So that's cool.
Yeah, and then kind of a head start with whatever activity might be going on. I mean, we don't do investigations in my class
Right.
with mine are all mediumships. I take
That
those.
doesn't mean you won't have an experience.
Oh yeah, it's just that we won't be
Right.
recording them on a meter. We'll be recording them here or
Right.
physically. I mean, physical things happen in these events. I mean,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
you take you use Seaside for a lot of reasons, and one of them is it's haunted.
It very
It's
much is.
kind
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of nice if you're having a ghost conference to have some ghosts.
Yeah. That was
Um,
one of the keys, like, that was one of the keys to moving is like, okay, is this place have enough stories? I don't know if Seaside's as haunted as Oregon City, but it very well could be. There definitely is a lot of history there, and we've been researching it year to year and learning more and more every year. So,
yeah, I
yeah,
don't know if anybody is or any place is as haunted as Oregon City, at least downtown. I've been to I've been to amazing places all over, and it's hard to find a place where every building almost has a story or two or
right.
five. Um, and some of these buildings go back thousands of years. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting place, which is part of why you got into all this, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, my interest has always been interested in Oregon City to some degree, but being born in Oregon City, growing up in Oregon City, right around high school was the sesquicentennial of the Oregon Trail and all of this. So there was a lot of celebrations, a lot of things focused on Oregon City's history, and um, kind of was surprised by the fact that people were coming to Oregon City. I started learning the history of the town, and I was intrigued by the history of Oregon City and got really involved in it, mainly because at the time I was in high school and college and didn't want a real job.
Right.
Um, and so my real job became basically creating souvenirs as a graphic designer. I basically created t-shirts and buttons and coloring books promoting Oregon City. And so I started this small business just doing graphics and artwork and selling it at booths and stuff to promote kind of the things that people were enjoying when they came to Oregon City, but there was nothing here for them when they got here. And from that point started, getting into more of the history, learning, working at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center when it opened, in 1995, and then it was hit with a massive flood. And then a couple years after that, I started working for the city and worked at the Ermitinger House, and that's kind of where the history kind of collided with the paranormal. Although I was kind of interested in the paranormal before I got to the Ermitinger House, but that was my experiences at the Ermitinger House is really kind of what solidified my interest in trying to figure out a little bit more about the paranormal.
Okay. Yeah, because now in the house is Well, it's one I'm involved in now too. Um, do you want to tell people what that first experience was?
Well, I've told this story a lot. I will say, I mean, it has to do with the chair in the dining room at the house, and basically the story goes that there was a steamboat captain who lived at the house, and we always kind of thought that was folklore, and it wasn't that we didn't believe it, but it's one thing to hear a story that's been passed down for generations and then prove it. But I'm happy to say we now actually know that there was a real steamboat captain who lived in the house, and we were able to kind of prove that. And the newspaper articles talking about James Graham, this steamboat captain on the Willamette, that he hosted dinner parties at the house. And so everything of this folklore story that we knew for generations, really, or decades, was proven in a couple newspaper articles that I found. And
Right.
so my experience was really seeing, kind of going by the chair at the dining room table where it was in a certain place and coming back and realizing that it had moved a couple feet and trying to explain that.
Hmm.
Was difficult. And so that was my first real experience. And as you know, I mean, that house is fairly active. We kind of joke about what active means in terms of paranormal locations, especially when it comes to paranormal TV shows. Um,
Right.
you know, we think, something's active. I think something's active if something's happening in a building once a week,
Oh, at
or
least.
even at least, so if you have something in a house happening once a month, I think that's pretty active. But trying to capture something once a week or once a month in a TV show is very unlikely. So um, I think the Ermitinger house is pretty active. Even in the last couple weeks, both of us have heard stories of things happening at the house. So
Right.
um, I think there's definitely an intrigue to it, and that's one of the things that drew me into really trying to connect the history to these experiences that people were having, both at the Ermitinger house, but beyond that, throughout the whole neighborhood.
Right. Well, actually, it's only been a week. It was a week ago yesterday I had experiences in the house. Um, so yeah, it happens.
Well, and Holly, I think, had a couple things in the last couple
Yeah.
months, I know, where wasn't completely most of the time when Holly tells a ghost story at the house, it's like, well, this happened, but I don't know. And that's kind of how we all feel sometimes. And then you try to narrow it down and say, okay, well,
Right.
who was up there? How many other times has this strange occurrence taken place? Is it something that happens regularly, or if something moved, what could have caused it to move, or
Hmm.
who knows? So there's so many of those the times where you're not quite there's enough of a buffer there to say, oh, I'm not sure. But
Right.
that happens almost every I think that happens far more than some of the shocking experiences that we have at the house. I think there's something happening at the Ermitinger house like that maybe every week,
Yeah, I would think
where
so.
it's just kind of what's going on.
And with somebody like me anyway, I'm expecting, or I just go in and I don't pay that much attention if I'm focused just on something else. And I either have to pay attention to listen or watch for things, or it has to be pretty blatant because I'm off in my own world doing whatever it is I'm doing. And
No, no, I don't believe that, William.
yeah, the fun of
I'm that way
ADHD.
too sometimes.
Yeah. And
Maybe more.
so, I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot that goes on in there probably that when I'm there that I don't catch because I'm talking to somebody or I'm doing something or
Right,
whatever. I'm
right,
there for a reason.
right.
But let me see. I've got OregonGhostConference.com. That's the conference website, right?
Yep.
And NWGhostTours.com is because Rocky also owns Northwest Ghost Tours,
Yeah,
which is
and that
actually how we met.
yeah. So Northwest Ghost Tours, this has been confusing for people for a while, but Northwest Ghost Tours is well, you kind of know this, William, because when we started, and William was one of the co-founders of the Ghost Conference. So
Yeah.
and I remember very specifically me and William having a conversation about what to name the Ghost Conference. And because it started in Oregon City, and thankfully we did not call it the Oregon City Ghost Conference. um,
Right.
and we had talked about some various names, and at the time, I think we thought, well, let's start big, like let's name it. And now, the reason we named it the Oregon Ghost Conference is because we wanted it to be big,
Right.
and to encompass a whole lot of other places. And now I think maybe we started too small, because it's grown to that name.
Right.
And so people get confused with the Northwest Ghost Tours. I chose that name a while ago, a long time ago, because I
Mhm.
wanted a larger umbrella. Um, and eventually that will make a little bit more sense. So if you go to northwestghosttours.com or nwghosttours.com, it takes you to hauntedoregoncity.com, which is also hauntedseaside.com, which is also hauntedselwood.com, because eventually these will all be individual things underneath the name Northwest Ghost Tours, and then I will have my individual tours under that. So, I definitely have the Oregon City Ghost Tours well known, and they have its own kind of recognition. But the Seaside Ghost Tours really are an annual thing with the Ghost Conference, and I'm hoping to expand the ghost tours in Seaside at some point so that it's a little bit more throughout the year. And then last year, the last couple of years, I've started testing a Selwood ghost tour, and those were very successful. And so my goal is to kind of focus on, keep building these tours and kind of take on their own identities in different places. So
Right.
you can basically go to all those places to find the same information, but
And each one of the tours is different. I used to give tours with Rocky in Oregon City. I used to do all of them at times, but I downtown was my main focus, but wherever was needed. And each tour is very different, and it's different every night because it's not
right,
just a
right,
set of stories written down from a book. These are experiences that people are having that tell us about them often. They're often something that's we've gotten first person or they happen on the tour. I mean,
right,
look how many stories in Oregon City we added just because of personal experience.
right.
An experience of the whole tour group, It's kind of
Well, and I
funny
I
that
don't
they all
know.
show.
I mean, when I travel, and I know when you travel occasionally, you probably go on ghost tours. I
Mhm,
I I enjoy it.
mhm,
Um, but you can really tell when you go on a ghost tour, especially if you go on a ghost tour in a city that is, well known to be haunted. You can tell pretty quickly if it's an active place, right? Or I'll give an example. I went on a ghost tour in San Francisco that I just thought was amazing, and I went back to it a couple years later, and it was still pretty much the same, and so it didn't have the same. Um, I wasn't as excited about it the second time because it was clear that it was a script, right? And
right,
it's not bad to have a script, but it means to me, well, if you go to a haunted place and then you go on a tour and then you go back 3 years later and it's the same stories, then how active is that place? It can't, or how active is the guide involved in that place, right?
right.
And I
Mhm,
think that's the real key is some people, and it's not to say I don't like going on a ghost tour if it's just a scripted thing and I'm still learning the history, but it's much more powerful when you have a guide that's connected to that place and experiences things on the tours or is close enough to know that that tour can change every night,
right,
and that it's not going to be the same because, as you know, I there's stories that I haven't told about downtown Oregon City in probably 10 years because I don't have time.
right,
And so I skip entire sections of the downtown to add news stories, but then I eventually think, oh, well, I better start talking about some of these old stories or I'm going to forget them.
right,
So that's one of the reasons, the tour started as one tour and now there's like five tours. And
right.
beyond that, I think there's room to create more different themes because they do take on their own personas. I kind of start with an idea of what I want the theme of the tour to be, but then it evolves over time and takes on its own kind of identity.
Right. Yeah, and I love them. And I like doing them. It's a little hard for me to do them right now. The body is not as young as it used to be. Um, but the ones, let me see, where was I going with that? Actually, I'm switching gears slightly.
Okay.
Um, I'd like to know a little bit more about what all you've got going at the conference this year. I want to make sure we get all that in.
Okay. Well, one of the things, William, is when we started the Ghost Conference way back, and even today, it's trying to always have a variety of things for people to do.
Right,
Um, and so I rotate things. We try to have something new every year, try to have some new guests every year, so that people have new experiences. And so this year we have three major events, three main events. Our key kind of events are um, Lloyd Arbuck is coming to the conference from the Bay Area. And so he's doing a show on Friday night, Professor Paranormal Psychic Mind Theater, which I
okay,
think is going to be really cool. And Kasha, a mentee who's a good friend of both of ours, and is frequently at other ghost conferences, especially Port Gamble,
right.
which we do in November.
Yeah,
Um, and so she's going to be back this year. And sometimes a lot of times, Nkasha does, gonna kind of connecting with loved ones who have passed. And that's possible this time around as well. But she's going to be focusing on psychometry, which is reading objects. And as you know, a lot of times those objects maybe belong to someone who
right,
had passed on and handed down a piece of jewelry or handed down a stuffed animal or something. But so she's doing a show on Saturday night of the conference, which people are encouraged to bring their objects. And as we did last time, we'll have a table set up where people place their objects out on the table. That way, and Kasha has no real idea of whose objects they are.
right.
And then she will kind of go to the table and read these objects, and then we'll kind of discover who in the audience is connected to those objects, and what she figures out from the readings. So it was really exciting last time. I kind of snuck an object in because it was a few years ago, I think before COVID, when the last time we did this specific type,
Right,
and I had stuck a doll into placed on the table because I really didn't want Nkasha to know it was mine.
right.
And she ended up reading that during the show, and it was pretty interesting. Didn't get as much information as I wanted, but enough to know that she was definitely picking up things from the object. So that was neat. And then one of the things that we're really trying to get the word out about is a movie that was filmed here in the Northwest about Bigfoot. And we try to open the ghost conference, and we've done this in the past, to other things other than ghosts. We've always
Mm,
had kind of connection to ufology and Bigfoot. So the Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot movie, which was filmed here in the Northwest, it's actually a sequel to the original documentary. We're going to have playing at the Times Theater, which is an amazing theater in downtown, just a couple blocks away from the convention center.
right,
And it's a late evening, so that's a 10 o'clock showing that we're going to have the Bigfoot paranormal Bigfoot movie. And it's a great theater. You can kind of enjoy some food, beverages, and watch the movie. And then after that, we have our investigation. But the investigation at Times Theater is one of the investigations that has already sold out.
okay.
But people can get their tickets for the movie on the Oregon Ghost Conference website. And guess what?
What?
We found out that that's another big movie weekend. Do you know what movie so they've changed the opening date to a big movie that's coming out. Do you know what big movie is coming out, William?
No,
I
I'm
don't know if
sorry.
you've ever heard of this movie because you know how you are with pop culture.
I know.
Okay,
I'm
well,
not
let's
kidding
just
when I
play.
say I know Bronze Age better than pop.
Okay, but we know that this is gonna be horrible. If you've never seen this movie, you're gonna have to just say, pretend you have.
Is it
You've heard of.
Beetlejuice?
No, that is coming. That is coming.
Okay.
You know Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Okay, so
And I
the
saw
new
the second one.
yes. So the new say that Lawrence is telling you, Ghostbusters. So Ghostbusters, they moved up the opening date, and I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but they moved the opening date for the new Ghostbusters movie to the weekend of the Ghost Conference. So we haven't promoted this at all yet, and I contacted so there's two theaters in Seaside. There's the Times Theater right downtown, and
Yeah,
then
that's the old historic one.
yeah, and then
Mhm.
there's the Seaside Cinemas, which is in the shopping mall just off of 101.
Right.
I contacted them because Ghostbusters is playing at that theater this weekend of the Ghost Conference. And even though our whole weekend is completely action packed, and we won't know until I think March 18th what times the movie is going to be showing at the Seaside Theater, but um, it'll be playing on Sunday. So we're hoping that for those people at the Ghost Conference who are staying Sunday night, that maybe a group of us will all get together and go see Ghostbusters Sunday night, late night, after we wrap up the conference, if we're still awake. So I let the Seaside Theater know that, and they're like, "Oh, that is awesome!" And so once we know the times, which will be like probably the week before,
Mhm.
we'll just tell people, "Hey, if you want to buy tickets, just join us at the movies, and we'll all go kind of see that if we're still." A bit. We usually go out to dinner, a group of us, after the conference is cleaned up. So I'm thinking maybe after that dinner on Sunday night, we'll go maybe to the movie.
Yeah. Oh,
So we'll
that's great.
see.
'Cause you've got spring break then following the conference.
Yeah, so
No
that's
rush?
a good thing. So Monday morning, we make a trip back to Oregon City with the U-Haul and all the stuff from the conference, and then I take the U-Haul back, unload everything, and then I drive back to Seaside, and I'll be in Seaside Monday through the entire weekend of spring break, the last weekend of spring break. I'm going to take Sunday, Monday night off. And then I'll be doing tours Tuesday through Saturday, through the rest of spring break. So I'll be doing tours in Seaside the whole week, and then during the day, I'm just going to hang out in Seaside.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, see how many people you find there from school.
Yeah, well, yeah, it usually does happen, sure. I have a
Uh-huh.
couple of students that are, like, maybe gonna be in Seaside, and I run into people, but, um
Well, how many, people about how many go through the conference each year? The visitors, the ticket buyers.
William, I don't know. So, um, I always try to guess. We do, of course, have, a tally of, the tickets and stuff, but,
Because you
I
sell.
didn't even really look last year.
Mhm.
Um because you gotta count all the people, that are involved in it too, the vendors. So I know that we've sold a couple 100 passes already, but, um, I guess every year. I have about 1,000 programs being printed up and about 1,500, lanyards being printed up. I think last year it was over 800. Um,
Mhm.
and so I know it was between 800 and 900 people, I think. Um,
Right.
but that's hard to get it. Well, I always have a hard time planning because if I say, oh well, it's about that, and I order that, then there's no room for growth. And what if 1,000 people show up, or what if 2,000 people show up? Because we have no idea. So
Right.
I always have to order more than I think.
Yeah, a way to add together. And how many classes um, do you have this year?
Over 30. There's about 32, I think, 32
Okay,
classes. So we're really growing, although we've always had a fair amount of classes.
right.
We've kind of been, between 25 and 30 classes. So we're about the same in terms of classes, a little bit more. Where we really saw the growth this year is with the vendors. So normally we have about 50 to 60 vendors. And we are now expanding that. The entire first floor of the convention center, the Pacific and the Canicum room, which we used to have our evening shows on the lower floor,
Hmm.
um, in that side room of the Mechanicum room, and now we're expanding that to be all vendors. So speakers will still be on the main stage, but that vendor area is expanding, and we have over 90 vendors. So
Wow.
it's a huge increase, with things that people can shop for, and a lot of new paranormal groups, a lot of new podcasting groups, a lot of different people coming. Um, and then in terms of speakers, we're kind of oh, my mom's saying hi. In terms of speakers, we've added a few. I've filled every slot of every
Yeah.
speaking slot, which may be a mistake, but we're starting speakers right at 9 a.m. So there is no time for you to rest on this skills conference, for especially people that are going to do the investigations till 2 or 3 in the morning, and then get a little bit of sleep and be at the conference at 8:30 again. So
Now, where all are the investigations being held?
all right, so we have a couple of them have sold out, although there's plenty of tickets for investigations still. Um, the Times Theater always sells out because we only usually do that one night.
Hmm.
And that's mainly because we're asking the theater to basically shut down for the movie and shut down for the other things that we're doing. And so I don't usually feel like asking them to do that multiple nights. So we usually only have one investigation at the theater, and that's
Hmm.
already sold out. So the Times Theater, and then we have our go to always location, which is the Bridge Tender. And
Right.
there's plenty of tickets for that one because that one has been one of our normal investigations for years.
I've
So,
had personal experiences there too, just in the middle of the afternoon going in for a
yes,
sandwich.
yes.
So it's crazy haunted.
Not to mention the upstairs.
Right.
So the Bridge Tender is another one. So that's our second location. The Starry Night Inn, which is one that we've had the last couple years,
Hmm.
which is a really cool Victorian house. It's where William's going to be doing part of his class. It's a house that we knew just a little about in terms of its history. We've learned more the last couple years, and the owners are really supportive of the Ghost Conference, and kind of were like, hey, we think our house might have some issues, and so we added it to a location on the Ghost Conference for investigating, and we've had experiences there every year so far. I mean, everyone that's gone there has had experiences, so we're learning a little bit more about the house. I find the Starry Night one especially really fascinating because no matter who you ask, they always think a different room is the most haunted. Which I find fascinating because I had my own gut instinct when I went into the Starry Night about which room I thought was the most active, and
Right.
everybody you ask says something different. So everyone has different experiences at that house. It's not as consistent as some other haunted places where everyone has the same experience in one particular room.
Right.
And then the other location is the old Masonic Lodge in Seaside, which is also just a couple blocks away from the convention center. So we have those four sites.
And I'm excited to be able to have my class at partly at the Masonic Lodge too, because I haven't been there yet. So it's
You didn't even walk into it yet or see it?
no, I
Oh,
haven't. I need to do some reconnaissance when I get there because
okay.
I know where you've told me, but
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't actually walked up to the building yet
Okay.
or in it. So
Okay. Well, maybe Friday or earlier Saturday before your class will I'll get you over
yeah,
there. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam and I are leaving Oregon City about noon, so we should be there by 2:30 or so on Friday.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
so yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Um, how many? Now you got the tour or the investigations. You obviously can't be running all these all on your own. You
Well,
have paranormal groups that work with you that
yeah.
do these.
Yeah. A bunch of different groups are working with us. I try to at least, well, we've added more investigations this year, so um, I I don't know how well I'm going to be able to get to all of them. I will get to all of them at some point for even a
Mhm.
moment, but I was last year I was trying to get to each of them at the beginning of them to make sure. Um, but most of our paranormal groups have been there before and don't really need my assistance to really get started, nor do they probably want it. So I may just try to. But I feel like when I'm responsible for the convention, that I should at least go by and stop by each of these to make sure they're going well. But what's happening is every night. So Friday night going into Saturday morning, and then Saturday night going into Sunday morning, we'll have like maybe 4 locations doing investigations at the same time. And so Kristen and the committee were all joking that eventually I'm going to probably have to get a golf cart because I'm running between like 3 or 4 blocks of Seaside for like anywhere from 11 o'clock at night until 3:30 in the morning, and then I walk back to the hotel and I or walk back to the Starry Night and go to sleep um, for a few hours, and then get back up to get to the convention center again at 8. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but the Starry Night Inn, we have Big River Paranormal doing a couple of investigations there, and also DBK investigations. They've both those teams have worked with us before. But Big River is doing a new. We've tried to add some more new investigations, and not just new investigations, but for new groups.
Okay.
So we this is the first year we're doing a specific youth investigation. And the youth investigation is at Starry Night on Friday, the opening night of the conference. It's early. It's 7:30 to 9, and there's still tickets left for that. It's $18, and that's for kids 8 years old to 17.
Oh,
And that is parents would come with the youth and buy a ticket as well. And so that's kind of something we're trying to get more things for kids.
yeah.
Um, the other investigations at some of the other locations require an age limit because of well, the Times Theater and the Bridge Tender are both bars, so they're
Right.
21. Other locations are 18 over because we need people to be adults and to be able to make their own decisions and sign waivers and things like that.
Right.
Um, but there'll be so we have the youth investigation starting night. We have beginners investigations, and then regular investigations, and then advanced investigations. So people can kind of choose between those. They're not strict, but if you're like, hey, I'm brand new to this and I don't know anything about investigating a haunted place, you might want to do the beginners one. Um,
Mhm.
the advanced one is for people maybe that want to really have a less number of people in the investigation, and maybe actually, as we know, when we do events like this, they're not real investigations, even when we want them to be, because it's a lot of people. So
Right.
with the advanced investigations, we basically have toned the number down just so that people can actually focus and maybe get some evidence. Um, so Big River and DBK at Starry Night, and then we have the Masonic Lodge. And the Masonic Lodge, we have Chris Califf and Matt Little from the Travel Channel's Ghost Loop are going to do a tour, or basically investigation. That sold out really quick, actually. And that is Friday night. And then the other investigations happening at Masonic Lodge, Western Washington Investigators of Paranormal Science, and then Ghostoria, which is out of Astoria, and they're a group that did a lot of the investigations at Bridge Tender, or sorry, at the Masonic Lodge last year.
Okay.
And then Bridge Tender is Guardian Angel is doing the Bridge Tender investigations.
No, that's Heidi and James Mitchell, right?
And I get them all mixed up.
Well, Big River I know is Jason
Yes,
Hessler.
Jason. Yes. In fact, I just did his show Friday.
Okay.
Friday night.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And so Jason, Big River. I did the interview with them, and it'll be airing, I think, on his podcast on 14th, maybe. He records it. He records his ahead of time so they could do all the editing. And
I like the live. This is what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
Keeps me on my toes.
I'm kind of used to that, but and usually I do okay with the live, but we started his thing, and I actually drove out to Vancouver, which I didn't need to. I could have done it online, but I said, between school and work, I'm basically at work or in my apartment. So I said, I don't mind to drive out to Vancouver once in a while to get out of town. And we were doing our interview, and I messed up a couple of times right off the bat. And so I was like, okay, well, let's just scratch all that and start over.
Well, for me, part of it is I'm not the techie. I don't know how to do all the editing.
Right.
And then this way we get to get some comments live sometimes. So whatever way works is great. Jason does a good job with the show, though. I've been on it before too, and he knows
they
what
got a
he's
nice
doing.
setup there for the station that he's working with, and it's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who's out there in TV land, radio land? Who's watching?
I don't see names. I just see numbers. We'll get a ton of. We don't have a huge number watching.
The comments pop up.
Oh yeah, in the comments we've got Lawrence, i.e. Sam, your mom, Lorna.
So it's my mom's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Angie.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Uh-huh. Excellent. So
she turns 40 today.
She's turning 40?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she looks younger than either one of us do.
I know.
And she's older than I am. I mean, she graduated ahead of me anyway. We were never in the same school at the same time. So it's yeah, it's crazy. And now I'm just trying to think too. Oh, and Katie Brown.
Oh, hi.
Katie's a really wonderful human being. She's really sweet.
I have not seen her in forever.
Are you going to be at the conference, Katie? She's one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
But Port Gamble's a little closer for her than Seaside. And actually, that's one of the things I want to mention too, is the way people get. Yeah, it's understandable. It's quite a drive for you. But the Port Gamble and Oregon Ghost conferences, Peter Bea is the guy that has and runs the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. He's also the boss of the town. But it's a company town.
Katie's reminding me that I saw her in November. Well, that's still a long time.
Exactly. That's the last time I saw her too. But the two conferences, the people, we all support each other and we work together, and there are some really good people involved in these organizations and the teams. And I mean, it's all grown so much, and a lot of my focus is on the the metaphysical, the mediumship, the psychic, the fae, the other beings that are we're working with other senses in other ways, um, that some people would call not scientific. I'm not saying I disagree with them, but it's just a little different. So I don't know as many of the paranormal community as I used to, but so many people are just great. We have a not just with the conference, but the people attending too, pretty collaborative, and people like them
Yeah.
both and come back and forth, and they have different feels to them. They're totally different conferences.
Yeah, and I would like to get I mean, we talk about this kinda every year, or I think about it every year. It's not something that I think about in the day-to-day planning of the Ghost Conference, but,
Mhm.
um, it has created a community, and it's created a community that I think is different than other parts of the country.
Right.
And when we talked about the Oregon Ghost Conference being bigger than what we wanted to name it, and it has reached that, to the point where, you know, I know it's the biggest on the West Coast. Um, it could very well be the biggest in the United States, at least in terms of what we're trying to do in a paranormal conference. I don't know. I mean, other paranormal conferences in the United States are multi-day. Very few of them are 3 days. Very few of them offer the amounts of classes and events and things that we do. Very
Mhm.
few of them have more than 10 vendors. So there's a lot of events throughout the country, but I don't know of any comparable to the Oregon Ghost Conference. In fact, I'm really asking people to tell me, like, we have people coming to the Oregon Ghost Conference from all over the place.
Mhm.
And when I talk to them, they say, well, they don't know of any that is as big as ours. Um, I don't want to, go and say it's the biggest, but we're getting to the point where people are driving from Midwest to even the East Coast coming to this thing. And so, if that's the case, what's bringing them to us? It must be, that we're doing something right. It must be
Mhm.
that our event is maybe offering them something that they're not getting locally. Um, and I think that's fascinating, but I don't know enough. I try to research enough to see what other events are around that kind of
Mhm.
doing what we're doing. Um, but I think one of the things that's different is it has become a community that welcomes everyone, not
Right.
just people in the paranormal community, but in the general public. People are like, "Oh my gosh, that's spring break." I'm like, "Yes, it's spring break." And people
Mhm.
are like, "That's crazy." And I'm like, "Yes, it is crazy." But what amazingly happens during spring break is that everyone's at Seaside. And so it is a massive collision of the paranormal and the general public and a bunch of different types of people.
Right.
And I wanted it to be that way. In fact, me and you talked about that and about
Yeah.
when we started the Ghost Conference about having it be something that draws everybody,
Exactly.
whether they just had a little bit of an interest in the paranormal or they were full engulfed in it or entrenched in it. Um, so I think people feel comfortable, and I think people it's fascinating to me to realize, like you said, the collaborations that have come from people meeting each other at either Port Gamble or the Ghost Conference. People
Exactly.
that met at the Ghost Conference, and then some project has been spurred because of that. And that
Yeah.
has happened with movies and books and all types of things. And that's not something I ever thought about happening when I created an event, that
Yeah.
there's this ripple effect that happens that you don't really control, but it's there, and it comes from this thing that you created,
And
which is
that's part of why the intent of the creation, I think, is so important, and part of the energy that goes into all of the reasoning behind it and the way it's put together. There's a certain integrity that both of them have in the way they're put together. And one of the things too, I think, Oregon Conference has is the general admission ticket prices, and although they've gone up, as has everything. They're pretty reasonable, and people can come in when you're in the middle of spring break or on the weekend and come in and out. They don't have to be
Right.
they can go play on the beach, they can do all their stuff. They can choose who or what they wanna visit or just go shopping around for an afternoon.
Right.
Um, and or they can do more with classes and such. But they're not spending $100 on a ticket that they need to be there then to make the most of that ticket.
Right,
Um,
you can definitely choose, and I it's a hard balance to keep, like, because
mhm.
everything is so expensive, plus, we're paying for all of the facilities that we're using, all these things, but,
Oh,
yeah, can someone come to the coast that we already know that it's spring break and that the hotels are not as cheap as they usually are during spring
mhm,
break. The prices go up. And so, is it still reasonable for someone to come and enjoy, even if they can just do it for the day? And I will say that right now, actually, for those of you that are listening that have not gotten or have not reserved rooms for Seaside, there are still rooms available. On our website, OregonGhostConference.com, there is a link to 5 different hotels. We have special rates for spring break. They are going to be less than what you would get normally during spring break. There's promo codes, and you call in based on the information on our website. But the 5 hotels still have rooms available. And definitely check that out. Don't worry that a couple of events have sold out and that the rooms are getting filled up, because there are plenty of rooms in Seaside available still. And if you show up to the Ghost Conference, you can buy tickets right at the
mhm,
counter for most all the events. We've only had a few events sell out, and the ones that have sold out are the ones that are pretty limited in terms of tickets. There's a ton of classes. We have like 30 classes. A lot of those classes are very specific topics,
mhm.
unusual topics. And if you go to our website, there is a link to the box office on our website that I just actually added a link last night, that you can click on a button on the box office that just takes you to the classes alone, so you can look at the classes individually to buy
Great.
tickets for those, or the events separately from that.
And you've got, bios or information about the different instructors there too, don't you? If I remember
Yeah,
right.
well, I'm still working on getting everyone's information up there.
Okay,
The all the class descriptions are up there. The bios I have links to working on, because it's taken forever. But
right.
um, when yeah, I mean, they're going to be up there, so when you're at the Ghost Conference, you'll be able to look all those up and
Yeah,
things. I'm in the midst of putting the guidebook together too right now. So 'cause that goes to the printer on Monday.
yeah. So now how are we going to combine this with Astoria at some time? Because with my family background too, I mean, Astoria is such an
Yeah.
important place. Um, but it's
We
about 25 miles, isn't it?
yeah. So we have discussed this numerous times.
Yep,
We did do a couple years where we had Jeff Davis was doing a ghost tour in Astoria, like in the afternoons or the evening or the last day of the convention. Um, I don't Astoria has limited amount of convention space. That's part of it. That's why it wasn't a site to really house the full convention. Um,
right.
and then the question has always been, well, if we do events in Astoria, does that pull people away from the conference in Seaside, or is that okay? And is that okay?
Right.
Um, I think to some degree, as we grow, when people have done all the Seaside locations, and if we offer some things in Astoria or a drive, then people might make that decision. Well, oh no, I've already done all the investigations in Seaside, and tonight they're offering one in Astoria. But it's so much to plan
Right.
that I haven't kind of fully thought that through. There's been
Yeah.
times where I thought, okay, well, do we have a shuttle bus that takes people out to a specific event, or do we leave the convention center and people can sign up for a tour that takes them into Astoria and then comes back, or do we just let people drive on their own? And if we let people drive on their own, do they come back? Those kind of
Right.
questions. um, and the truth is, unless we expand this beyond 3 days, it's going to be difficult to cram more in. I've
Yeah.
tried to cram as much in as possible. So I don't know. We're now getting to the point where people are going up there usually on Thursday and coming home on Monday. So
Yeah.
does that mean, that we extend things during the day on Friday? Um, we've talked about it a little bit, but it just means who wants to take on that extra thing and make that jump.
Right.
Not
Well,
really
and it's a little
quite
bit
ready for
harder. It's a little bit harder too to find the locations. You've got the Flavel House, and
right.
I'm usually a member of the Clatsop County Historical Society.
Well,
It's cheaper and has
Ghost Story is connected with the Liberty Theater too, and in the last couple years, we had talked about doing investigations at the Ghost Conference in at the Liberty Theater. But again, the logistics of it and trying to figure out, do we focus on Seaside right now, and then
mhm,
we got to
yeah,
consider it. But it's just another piece how logistics of that works.
right. And places are not cheap to use there. Um,
Right.
I know several years ago, the Flavel House, well, they had some people make money off of books and a few things. Some of it wasn't even accurate. And they said, well, if they're going to make all this money by spending the night here, um, they did some investigations or something. We're going to start charging to use the place,
Right.
which makes sense because they have to have the lights on, the heat, whatever. Use it
Right.
as a fundraiser. The Clatsop County Historical Society is amazing, and it costs a lot of money. So 10 years ago, it was $1,000 for a night at the Lavelle House. I don't
Really?
know what, yeah, I don't know what it is now. Um, and they told me why. They told me which events were the ones that made it happen. The main building, the Historical Society building, which is an old city hall, which is built right at the old Fort Astoria Graves Cemetery, um, is interesting. And there's a firefighters museum, which is interesting. Um, and there are a lot of, and the Liberty Theater. There's also another theater that's smaller and is connected to the tunnels. But most of the places that there are not very big. Is
Right.
you couldn't get a lot of people, not just for a convention, but for a lot of other things. So um, and expensive. So, but it's I don't know. It's home. Yeah. Now, when do the ghost tours for Northwest Ghost Tours start?
That's a very good question. And the main answer is after this happens, after the Ghost Conference. So typically, well, you know exactly what the answer is, William. Not
Yes.
exactly the date, but here's the issue with Rocky. Rocky has to get through the Ghost Conference, which means nothing happens with the Ghost tours until like April. Um, and that means that's when Rocky starts thinking about the Ghost tours for 2024 in
Hmm.
April. Um, but then he has to get through a couple more months of school. Um, typically, Rocky takes a vacation, tries to. Um, and so in the past years, it's always been around July that the ghost tours start in Oregon City.
Hmm.
Um, I last year, I think, started in June, a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
Um, and I had intended to start the tours in May last year, but as we have seen with Mother Nature, our seasons have shifted, and now we are still in winter into March.
I had an inch of snow today when I
Yeah.
woke up at 8 o'clock.
Um, so we're hoping that and don't get me wrong, I love the snow and it can snow like crazy until March 20th. But after that, it needs to stop. Um, and then so it rained crazily rained like all of May last year, and so
Yeah,
I didn't even want to start the tours in May last year because it just was miserable. um
right.
so typically, I mean, if the weather's good, I'll start sometime in May. It may be June. I have to start penciling out a schedule, and then I do tours basically June through August. Not every weekend, but
Mm,
I block out a couple weeks for vacation. But June through August, I do tours at least, and then usually take a little break at the beginning of September to start school. And then mid September through Halloween is definitely then my Halloween season. And then
mhm.
I usually take November off, and then do my Christmas tours in December. I do plan on adding in some more of the Selwood tours this year. I did, I think, only one or two nights of the Selwood tour last season, so I plan to add more nights of that. And
Good,
I
because I didn't I
also,
haven't made it yet to that, and I
yeah,
want to.
and it's still new. It's still, I in fact, if anyone lives in Selwood who has any amazing stories, please find a way to get a hold of me or William, because I'm still trying to find the city, the area of Selwood Moreland has a lot of incredible history. It's a pretty good tour, but I still feel like I need one or two more good, really good ghost stories. So I'm still
Mhm.
researching on that. That's why I haven't offered it fully. I've done 3 tours in Selwood so far in the last couple of years as kind of test runs. Um, and then I'm really wanting to try to do more seaside tours throughout the year other than just the week of the Ghost Conference. So you might see me adding a couple weekends of ghost tours in seaside uh, that connect with other larger events that are happening in seaside on certain weekends. So
Oh,
um,
good.
that's the hope. There may be some other little things coming up. I'm intrigued about the possibility of doing something in Portland, but I haven't really fully brainstormed that out yet. We've seen a lot of the Portland walking tours kind of go away
Mhm.
because of COVID and because of all the things happening in Portland and people not feeling safe in downtown. Um, but things are starting to come back a little bit in Portland, and eventually, I'm curious to see what happens with walking tours in Portland to see whether or not some of those tours come back. Um, so I'm not sure. I've always been interested in trying to do something in Portland. That's kind of what started the Selwood tour, because I think there's some unique neighborhoods in Portland that are beyond just the downtown core that
Yes.
have a lot more history. And in fact, those pieces of those neighborhoods' history is being lost. And so one of the ways to keep history alive when the buildings come down is to at least have these stories. And I think that's kind of what's happening in Selwood. We're losing a lot of the historic buildings in Selwood, but there's still a lot of history there. So if I
Right.
can try to do some more research and find some other neighborhoods in the Portland area where a tour is warranted, I'm going to try to start some other things. So
I've got I got a few places off the top of my head. I can't tell you any particular stories, but I think they would have them. They're places I've hung out
yeah,
over the years or even lived. Mostly on the east side, west side too, but the east side is um no, it's a whole different thing. It used to be a different city. And
I
that's
wish there was more, and I haven't looked into this a lot, but in certain cities, you can really easily find history of historic homes. But and maybe but in some of the Portland old neighborhoods, I don't know to what degree they have a historic registry of the homes there, because
E Ir Irvington's a historic
yeah.
district.
So some of those areas would. Because of course you start with the houses and then in the older neighborhoods, and if you can do research on the houses and find out the names of the people from that time period, then you can start going into the newspapers and finding stories that can connect to some of the weird stories that I'm finding in other places. So
Right.
people don't realize the amount of work it takes to put together a tour,
Well,
where you're actually trying to understand the history of the community, and it takes a good year or two before I feel even comfortable with launching a tour for
mm,
me to kind of get a handle of that. So it takes a while.
well, I know one house in Irvington because friends of mine, when I was at university, lived there. That's haunted. The Irvington Club is haunted, and they're practically across the street from each other. Um, oh yeah, and I don't know what all else. And there are some other areas too. I know there are stories, I just don't know them.
Yeah,
And I know another place that I think probably is. It's a convent in the middle of a nice neighborhood.
yeah.
Um, if any of the nuns are still left alive, I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure if they're still around. They were lovely ladies. I was in their choir for a while. Um,
You want to
but
sing us something, William?
pardon me?
Do you want to sing us something?
No, that's okay. Um, and oh, I'm
You know,
trying to
they
think.
say that I I'm I'm joking because I have a lot of students that are in choir, and so I'm like, oh well, I had some students that were on a field trip that were gonna be in choir, and I was doing a lot of trips throughout the world with the choir in the past
Right.
years, which I haven't done lately, but so of course when any of my students say, "Hey, I'm in the choir," I'm like, "Well, sing us a little something." And of course they never want to. It's like, "Oh, well, come on.
Oh,
You
I
can
never
sing a little
remember a
part."
whole song.
What?
I never remember a whole song.
So you were just a backup singer? You would just do like the
No, I mean we had our music in front of us.
yeah.
Yeah. And I shoot, well, it's been too long since I've been a cantor at church, so I don't remember any of the mass parts anymore either. But it used to be, those were things I could sing in Latin even. But, it's been a while.
We
It's
won't have you we you're not gonna perform a song at the Ghost Conference? We could have you.
I'll have to think about that. I need a new
Okay,
s-
here. I got an out for you. I got an out for you. This will be easy
okay.
because the weekend of the Ghost Conference, I don't know if you know this, but the weekend of the Ghost Conference is my grandfather's 99th birthday.
That's right. I do know that.
And I'm gonna see him the week before the Ghost Conference, but a bunch of my family is gonna be at the Ghost Conference, and I think what we're deciding to do is on the Saturday of the Ghost Conference, we're hoping to get all of my family together and probably I don't know if we can FaceTime my grandpa or what we're gonna do, but we will definitely sing happy birthday to my grandpa at the convention. Probably on Saturday. It'll be his 99th birthday. So we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So you can help sing then and kind of fill in the crowd.
Okay.
We won't
Sounds
have you
good.
do you won't have to do a
I won't have to do a solo.
so, yeah. We could do no, we don't even want to do a duet. That would still not be good. We need some fill in. Yeah,
We can make it work.
good idea.
It's good to see Casey
Yeah. Hi,
in.
Casey.
Um, but yeah, we can do that. Um, what are you looking? Oh,
Oh, I'm just looking at the comments. I was seeing
oh,
who's on
okay.
there. And
Yeah, that's good. You get to see him too. Um, let's see. What else? Do you have anything else about? the conference, the tours, how you got involved a bit or whatever. Anything else that's important for you to get out at of or to talk about at this particular point? My mind and my mouth don't always coordinate.
Well, I would just tell people that, even if you haven't made plans yet, there's still a lot of classes and events available to you at the Oregon Ghost Conference. There's still rooms available, hotel rooms available. I know I mentioned that before, but on the website, you can get links to that. Just let the hotels know, if you are connecting with the hotels that are on our website, that you want to be part of the Oregon Ghost Conference group rate, and they will give you a group rate for that. It helps us as well because we have a lot of our people staying at the hotels as well, so that it's nice for them to know that we're bringing in a lot of people.
Right.
Um, and even if you feel like you can't make it an overnight trip, you can still come out to Seaside, barring any crazy traffic. But driving out to Seaside to do a couple events on the Saturday, and then head home, that's an option as well. We're hoping the weather is okay. If it does become snowy the weekend of the Ghost Conference, you will be probably joining the rest of us on a long detour around Astoria, which is what we all pretty much did last year. I had to make that trip 3 times, I think, and it was a good way to bypass the snow. So
Yeah.
I guess I will say that too. Don't let the snow discourage you if it does start snowing in the next couple of weeks, because you can still get to Seaside if you go around and through the Astoria Way along the Columbia River. So,
Yeah. Highway
um,
30
yeah.
up and you can also take I-5 to Longview and then cut over and get onto Highway 30 there. It's a little faster, maybe.
Okay,
If you don't
maybe
want to
that's
drive
what my
through
phone was
Portland.
doing, William. Maybe that's what my phone was doing, because I ended up in Longview on the way to the Ghost Conference last year,
Yeah,
and my family was like, well, the core Ghost Conference committee was like, "What the hell are we doing?" Well, I said, "I don't know. I'm just following my phone, and it told me to go this way."
it's the fastest route.
Well, it didn't end up being the fastest route, and so I got a lot of pushback on it. But I blamed it all on the fact that I was hungry and I wanted to go to Taco Time, which happens to be right at the Kelso exit. So we went to Kelso to get Taco Time before we went back to head to head towards Astoria. And we're randomly in Taco Time, and we run into a bunch of people that are like, "Rocky, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I'm getting some tacos," which is, as you know, one of the key things to the Oregon Ghost Conference. Every one of our meetings, we go to a Mexican restaurant and have tacos. So if it and Kristen says the only reason we have so many dang meetings is because Rocky just wants a chance to eat tacos, and it's partially true.
Yeah, I believe
So
it.
we get a lot of work done over chips and salsa. So
Hmm. That sounds good.
but anyway, yes, I want to have everyone come out. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone. This is a celebration of a lot of things. It's a good chance for me to get to see everyone every year, but it's also a conclusion of a mass amount of work,
Hmm.
and a lot of people put a lot of time and energy into this event. So we just want people to come and enjoy it and have fun and get the word out. So if you know people, or you're doing a class or an event at the convention, please get the word out, post promos. I tried to send the information out to everyone, but get the word out. We want to get everyone to the coast safely and have fun.
Excellent. Thank you. And I will have links to this from my YouTube channel and from this Facebook page for people to watch. Spread it around. Most of the views come after the fact, and so we'll have it, and I'll post it out on my social media, and then send it to Rocky and anybody else who wants it. So um, please feel free to do that. Rocky Smith, thank you so very much. It's
Thank you.
been a pleasure as always. And we'll see all of you at the conference. Take care. Bye bye.